Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I decided I'm going to start a channel talking about biblical things about Christianity, things about God, about how we view the Bible, how we view things regarding the Bible, regarding Christianity. And my main purpose in doing this channel is to have a discussion about what our approach to Christianity, to the Bible, to life in general, I guess, what it really should be. I've already made a few videos, but I haven't posted them yet, so I decided I was going to go back and make an intro video. So that's what this is. This is just one to kind of give you guys a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of background about why I'm doing this and what this is going to be about. And so I'll post this when I post the rest of them as well. But it may seem a little out of order, and I may repeat myself a little bit because, like I said, I already had some of those videos done before this one. So anyway, just to let you know a little bit about myself. My name's James. I have grown up in the church, very conservative, evangelical, you'd call it, fundamentalist, you might call it, church. That's my background. I have since moved away from that to some degree. Because through study and through just growth in understanding, I've come to see things a little bit differently. And so I wanted to express some of these things because I think Christians are missing a lot of things that should be more plainly evident, but it's so easy for us to get stuck looking at things from a certain point of view only and not giving other vantage points an opportunity to influence our understanding. And I think it's critical that we have a wide range of influence and keep an open mind and try to keep ourselves from being pigeonholed or from pigeonholing ourselves into a certain view that may not be correct, may not be accurate. And in my mind, accuracy is key. It's everything. And because we want to know the truth. If we really want to know the truth, then we're not going to be afraid to ask questions. We're not going to be afraid to ask the hard questions. We're not going to be afraid of being challenged in our views and our opinions. And so this channel that I'm starting here is intended to be a forum where we can have a discussion, because I don't want to just be me speaking my mind and my opinions, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what the comments are and what you think about these topics and what I say, because I don't think I'm the only one out there, but I see it's very rare to find somebody that's going to be posing the kind of questions I'll pose. I know they've got to be out there, but I haven't been able to see them or find them so far. But anyway, I hope you'll come along with me and we can have some success at finding that truth, finding the real truth, not just the perceived truth that we've always assumed, or that we've been told, or how we've been raised, or whatever the case may be, why we believe something the way we believe it. So I'm going to be challenging the traditional views on the church and on the Bible, but I'm also going to be challenging the skeptics, because what I've found is that skeptics, a lot of them, they claim to be, open-minded and more grounded in logic and reason, they'll say, but they really don't like being challenged themselves. They like to be the challengers instead of the challengees, if that's a word. And I want to challenge them. I want to challenge the skeptics, but I also want to challenge the traditionalists, because I think they also have preconceived notions that they're unwilling to admit. I did. I know I've had many of those. I'm still working on it. I've got a lot of growth to do, but I've done a lot of growth too. And so I just want to share that growth with you guys, and feel free to take it or leave it. I think we all have the responsibility to ourselves to make our own choices and not rely on somebody else's opinion or somebody else's doctrine or theology or lack thereof. I think we need to investigate on our own. I think that's what God expects us to do, is do the best we can, seeking the truth and being sincere and honest about it. And He knows if we're really doing a good job or not. It's nothing we have to prove to each other here on this earth. But anyway, I'm going to try to be as open-minded and unbiased as I can. I know that's impossible. Being a human being, I'm going to have tons of bias that I don't even realize. But that's where I want to rely on you guys to hold me accountable. You know, just call me out in the comments if you say, hey, you're being a little bit dogmatic on that, or what's your proof for that, or challenge me. I'm totally cool with being challenged, because I don't have it all down. I'm not perfect. Nobody is, and so we can all learn from each other. But please be respectful. Don't be rude. Don't be a problem on the site, because I'll delete any comments that are abusive or just aren't helpful, because I want constructive stuff only. Constructive criticism. I want to learn, and I want to help you guys learn too if I can. So what I want to do is I want to start with just a few basic tenets, kind of some foundation, because we have to start somewhere, with our belief system. We have to start somewhere, and we all start with whatever we're given from usually the generation before us, or generations before us, things that have been passed down. And that just comes down to our worldview, our general basic ways we look at the world and how we perceive things. And so everybody's going to have a little bit different starting point. But so for this channel, I just want to put down a few things that I'm going to take as givens. Just starting points, that's all they are. It doesn't mean they're indisputable and can't be challenged. It just means we need a framework at least to which start with, then we can work from there. So, and there's only two main tenets I want to start with, and that is that there is a God, that He is real. And I'm going to stop right there, because anything beyond that, I think, is very welcome for debate here on this channel at this point. And I don't mind discussing that as well, but like I said, we need a starting point. So we'll just start with that as presumption that there is a God and He is real. And then we can talk about what that means. And then the other one is that the Bible is reliable. And I'm purposely being vague by saying that. I believe the Bible is reliable. And we can get into the nuances of that, and we will, because that'll be a big part of this channel, is discussing the Bible and its reliability. But we're going to start with saying it is reliable, at least to some degree, because otherwise we can't use it for anything. And I want to use the Bible as my basis. And so we're going to start there. Like I said, we can circle back around at some point once I get this kind of going more, and we'll discuss, okay, really? Is it really reliable? And how do we know? And so forth and so on. But we'll start with it being reliable and that God is real, and those are the two things that we'll kind of launch this channel with, those notions, and we'll go from there. Okay, getting back to our preconceived notions of things and what our worldview is and how we see the things around us and how we interpret, like when we read the Bible. Since we're presuming that the Bible is reliable, so when we read it, what does that mean? How do we interpret it? How do we apply it to our lives? Should we apply it to our lives? So that's what I'm going to start with, is talking about how we decide what to keep and what not to keep, as far as what we've been handed. We're born, we're raised in a family, we're raised in a society, in a culture, and there are certain norms, certain beliefs, certain systems that are already in place, and we're born into that. And so we grow up in this system, and a lot of it we just take for granted, and that's good. That's healthy. That's what you should do. You should rely, if you don't know any better, you rely on what your parents learned from their experience, or your grandparents, or generations before. So that's natural. But we get to a point, we get old enough to where we start to say, well, do we know that's the right viewpoint? Do we know that mom and dad had it right, or grandma had it right, or whoever? Do we know that the preceding generations were correct? And we start to think, well, maybe not. And we challenge some of those. And so in that process, how do we know what to keep and what to throw away? It's like the old baby with the bathwater scenario. You don't want to throw everything out all at once just because you challenge it. Like you say, well, I don't see any real evidence that this is a certain way we should look at things. Well, do you throw everything out? Well, you can't really do that, because then you'd be kind of flopping around, floundering without any stability, and that can get really dangerous. So my perspective is you kind of surgically do it. You throw out the stuff as you come across it that you can rule out as being legitimate for a worldview. And so we're going to treat the Bible that way too. There's a lot of things that people say about the Bible, that make claims about the Bible and about what the Bible says, that is erroneous, absolutely. And some of it, I'm not sure about. Some of it is totally legit. So how do we know which is which? Do we go to the scholars? Do we go to the theologians? Do we go to pastors or priests or whoever is in our church in leadership roles? My answer, they can be a great help, but they can also be a great hindrance, because they too have preconceived notions. They have their own opinions. Anybody you talk to about the Bible has their own opinions about what the Bible says. I mentioned this in another video about reliability of translation and interpretation and so forth. So I won't say anything more really about that in this video. This is being just an intro video. I guess one question I ask myself is, what good does it do me to follow something blindly just because somebody else is doing it that way? Well, the answer is multifaceted, because sometimes it's very good. If let's say you're blindfolded and somebody's leading you by the hand, you have to trust them. I mean, you could let go and try to make your way on your own, but that could be very dangerous. So a lot of it comes down to what we know about the people that are telling us these things, who's leading us. So with the Bible, we trust our parents generally, and the generations before are generally trustworthy, or at least we can test whether they're trustworthy or not because of their actions, of their character, and so forth. So you get good people with good character, and you assume that they're a trustworthy source. And a lot of times that is the case, but sometimes their character isn't all that's at stake in making your decision. Some people are very innocently misguided, and they truly believe that they've got the truth. They truly believe they're teaching and saying things the right way, but they're not. They're inaccurate. They just don't know it. But they're very sincere. They're very Christ-like in their actions and their words and their thoughts, and of course they'll be in heaven someday. But that doesn't mean they're correct. That doesn't mean they're accurate. And I don't believe God thinks that accuracy is the most important trait. I think I mentioned that in another video already. But He is most interested, I believe, in our heart, in what we strive to do, with He's more interested in how we handle what we've been given, whether that's material things, whether that's time, whether that's location, whatever that is, whatever we're whatever situation we're in, we're going to be assessed by God based upon how we handle that situation. And He's more interested in the heart than He is in the accuracy. You know, if we're trying to find the truth, but we're misled, or we don't find everything exactly the same, or we don't get everything exactly right, that's not what He's concerned with. That's kind of what the old covenant law was all about. He gave that to the Jews specifically to show them that that's an impossible task, to try to keep the law perfectly. Nobody can do it. And so that was the whole point of that law, that covenant, or that was the primary point, I'd say. And so now we can't put ourselves back under that kind of a system. That's what Jesus died for. He died so that they could get out from under that system. He fulfilled the law. And now a lot of us Christians, like I said, I was raised in a very fundamentalist group, and they believe, for the most part, that we're in a system of law. We have that burden of law on us, again, as Christians, and that's exactly what Christ died to get rid of, the system of law. And that's what Paul's argument is all through Romans and Galatians. The writer of Hebrews, he talks about how superior the new covenant is over the old. And the book of Revelation, that whole thing is about out with the old, in with the new. That's Judaism as a system, as a nationality, or I wouldn't say that. I'd say as a covenant people. That was over. God had fulfilled everything He said He was going to fulfill with them, and they'd served their purpose. And for the most part, the leadership and the powers that be in Judaism, they were unfaithful. And that's what Jesus says. He says it right to their face. And He tells them that they're going to be judged for it, and they were. They were judged for it. But then the new covenant comes in, and it's different, very different, and far superior to the old one. It's not a system of law. It's not a system of rituals and rites and ceremony and you have to pay some kind of a penance for every little sin you make. No, we're told that Jesus died and He forgave all sins for everyone. And He even said that you no longer sin. Look at 1 John chapter 1. He who is in Christ, he's a believer, he doesn't sin anymore. That doesn't mean you don't commit sins. It just means it's not accounted to you like it was under the old law. It's not held against you in the same way to where you need to take an animal and sacrifice it, to make some kind of a penance or whatever. No. What God expects of us today is that we try as best we can not to sin. We want to please Him. We want to show Him that we love Him and we respect His love for us. And if we do truly love Him, we'll do the things that He wants us to do. We'll show Him through our actions, through our lives, through our words, that we do love Him and that we love our neighbor as ourselves. It's like Jesus said, the whole law was covered by those two commandments: love God and love your neighbor. Well, that applied even before the law. I believe that's what God has always wanted of His people. He wants us, His creation, to love Him and love each other. And if we did that, everything else would fall into place. There would be no problems. Obviously, we can't do it perfectly, and so there are problems. But we don't have to pay for them in the same sense as they did under the old law. We're not under that burden. That's what it's called. It's called a burden. It's called a law of death, a law of sin and death. We don't have that anymore. We're free from that. John also says in 1 John that, love casts out fear. We shouldn't have that kind of fear because we have love. not just our love, we have Jesus' love. We have God's love. So speaking of the Bible and what we throw out and what we keep, some people are really quick to throw the whole Bible out because they've seen it abused, they've seen it misused, mishandled, or they've seen certain passages mishandled, misapplied. And I think that's dangerous. We can't just throw it out because people misuse it. I mean, we wouldn't do that with a cookbook. You know, if just because somebody doesn't follow it like it's supposed to be followed, the recipes, we don't throw the whole book out and say, oh, that book's garbage because I've seen people who use that book and their food tastes terrible. Well, they might not be using the recipe right, you know. So we can't do that. That doesn't really make any sense. And also that goes for the Bible itself and what you read in the Bible. Let's say you have a cookbook and you find out that there's, let's say there's a typo or there's an error, say, in the cookbook. And so on a certain recipe, you do this recipe right by the book. You do everything right, and it tastes weird. It's like, what in the world? This is horrible flavor. I can't even taste this. And I can't even eat this. And then you find out later that the recipe was a typo. Instead of a teaspoon of salt, it said 2 cups of salt or something like that, you know, something crazy. So totally threw the flavor off. But you didn't know that the first time you read it. You don't just throw the whole cookbook out because you made a recipe that didn't taste good from it. It wouldn't make any sense. That would not be the rational, reasonable approach. Same thing goes with the Bible. There are some things in the Bible that are really bizarre. There are some stories, some accounts, especially in the Old Testament, that are just, I mean, it just has you scratching your head and you're like, what in the world could that mean? Because that does not seem consistent with the general message of the Bible. I'd say there's like, out of the entire Bible, I'd say about 0.001% of the Bible, maybe, I mean, just throwing that out there, is like that. But we can't ignore it because it is in there. But it is so small. It's such a small amount of text that's actually odd. You know, most of the Bible is very fluid, very consistent. It's got a very constant theme that goes throughout. And it really dovetails together very nicely for the most part. But I totally admit that there are some things that are, I'll just say, problematic at face value when we read them at face value. But we got to understand, we got to have a little bit of pride and say, or we got to swallow a little bit of pride. We got to have a little bit of humility and say, you know, I am reading a document that is 2,000 years old at best. Some of it's much older than that. And it was written on another continent, in another culture, in another language, by people that don't think like me, that have totally different traditions, totally different worldview than I have. And I'm trying to understand it. And that's tough to do. That's really tough to do. We see that in our own society. We look back just 150 years or say 200 years, and we just can't believe that slavery existed on the planet, right? We can't believe that because we don't understand that. We can't fathom. I mean, obviously we understand that it happened, but having it such a common practice is almost unfathomable to us. We don't understand how people could have ever enslaved other people. Yet it happens all over the world. It happened all over the world. In fact, England and the US, they were the extreme minority in proposing to abolish slavery. Some of the first ones on the planet to do it. And, but it was just unthinkable that you would not have slaves back then. Now, fast forward to 2023, and it's the opposite. It's unthinkable to have slavery. So my only point with that is, look how quickly things change. That's 200 years ago or less. And And now we're talking about the Bible, which is 2,000 years ago. So, and this is, and we're, with the slavery issue, we're talking about the same culture, same country, same language, same everything, just different time. And with the Bible, we're talking about different everything, including time. So we really need to take that in consideration. We're reading this book. Yeah, it's written in our language of English. But that doesn't mean it's written how it sounded to them. You know, the words in English, what they mean to us, is not necessarily what they meant in the original language to the original hearers. So that's really got to be considered in any kind of Bible interpretation. And every time you read the Bible, you are interpreting what you're reading. There's no doubt about that. Okay, I think that's good for an intro. I mean, it could have been a lot better, but I'm going to stop there because I don't want it to be too long. And again, let me know what you think in the comments of the intro, and then, like I said, I'll post the other videos that I already have done, and I think I have 2 or 3 others, and then we'll go from there. And I want to use your comments to kind of guide what we talk about and where we go with the rest of the videos. So please give me your comments, and we'll see what we can come up with, and hopefully we can be very, you know, this can be an edifying thing, it can be an encouraging thing, it can be something where we don't just take what we're told on either side, on any side of an argument or of a position, and instead we can grow. The only way to grow is to learn. The only way to learn is to put down previous understandings and lift up new understandings. That's what learning is by definition. You have to understand something in a new way in order to learn anything. So let's go for that, and I have high hopes and great expectations for what you guys have to offer, and I look forward to hearing from you. So as I sat down to edit this video, I realized that I'd kind of forgotten to make a couple of points, so I just wanted to add those in real quick about this whole video series. So these, I'm going to call these walk and talks, because that's what I'm doing, of course. And they're kind of just off the cuff. They're unscripted for the most part. Sometimes I jot a couple notes down so I don't forget some stuff to say, but it's not super organized, and it's kind of that way on purpose. I want it to be kind of organic, kind of natural, just kind of flow. And just for these, at least the initial, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe a handful of videos, and then I'll get more precise, more organized. You know, I'll make an outline and it'll be easier to follow, I think. But anyway, I just want to get these ideas out there, get some discussion going, and then it can kind of point me in the right direction of what you guys want to talk about and discuss. But I want to just reiterate the main theme of everything is our personal responsibility. There's a big difference between what I believe personally and what we each should believe personally, and then what we should impose on other people. And that's the big defining factor. Those are the two ways we look at, well, in this case, religion, but also politics and all that can be incorporated too, I suppose. But just because we come to a conclusion doesn't mean we need to force that upon other people, but we do that all the time in Christianity, and it's unfortunate. But anyway, I just wanted to explain that's the main point. I'm going to be saying some things that are definitely going to rub people the wrong way. I don't mean to do that, but I'm not going to shy away from the hard stuff, the deep stuff, the controversial stuff. It's kind of the point of this, is to dig out the differences and see where they are, expose where our weaknesses are. Because until we know what our weaknesses are, we can't turn them into strengths. We can't improve. So I want to get into all kinds of different topics. I want to talk about denominations. Why do we have denominations, and is that a bad thing or a good thing? I want to talk about salvation. You know, what is it? How do we get it? Can we lose it? If so, how? I want to talk about the end times, or eschatology. We have a lot of different views on eschatology. Is that a Is that a salvation issue? Do we have to believe the same way in order to have fellowship with each other or in order to respect each other? Does the Bible say anything about our future? I want to talk about the Trinity, the deity of Christ, topics like this that, or a lot of Christians believe that some of these doctrines are completely settled and there's really no reason to discuss them other than to reinforce predispositions on them. And we're going to talk about that, whether that's true or not. I want to talk about the Holy Spirit. What is it? How does it affect us? Compared to how did it affect the first century Christians? I want to talk about predestination, God's sovereignty, and free will. Because those are topics I think are very misunderstood. Only because they're not thought through very well. And we need to talk about these things and see if we can come to better conclusions, because you can see through church history that there are trends that develop and certain notions get really strong, and then they get traction and they get popular and they really take hold and they change a generation or more of believers. And if you really track it back to what caused it, it was some event or some occurrence or some particular thing that was going on in society at the time, and that's kind of caused people to think a certain way, and that produced a shift in thinking, in theology and doctrine. And so it's interesting when you go to research the beginnings, the origins of some of these doctrines, some of these beliefs, and you find out, oh, well, that's why they thought this way. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know I want to get into the deep stuff, the hard stuff, and I want to go in with an open mind, a humble heart. That's what I wanted to talk with you guys about mainly. I just wanted to give you that kind of real quick snapshot of what my intention is behind these videos. And again, I'll get to the point where I get more scripture incorporated into it, of course, because that's a big part of this. And but for now, I just want to kind of lay down a foundation, put out a few videos that bring up some different topics, generate some discussion, and we'll go from there. And we'll let it be, like I said, kind of organic, and let it grow in the direction it needs to grow. That's it for this video, and I will see you next time.